Harvey Milk represented it, that it's not as progressive. Are people in District 8 looking for the next Harvey Milk or someone different?
Cynthia, you can call me Rebecca. We've known each other for over 10 years now. Okay, how many of you have seen the movie Milk? Okay, and how many of you remember the scene when Jim Rivaldo, who is my friend, and this is the first campaign I've worked on without him, may he rest in peace. How many of you saw the scene where he lays out the map and he says, we now have the gays and the hippies. And all we need to do is get the gays and the hippies, and then we can win. Do we remember that scene? Yes. Okay. You know what? That's not District 8 anymore. So it's Noe Valley, it's Glen Park, it's Diamond Heights, it's Dubose Triangle, Upper Market, and the Castro. So the lines are different, and the district is different than it was 30 years ago. We are San Franciscans. We want someone who's going to stand up for us and fight for us, like Harvey did. We also want someone who has a common sense approach to solve San Francisco's everyday problems. Getting uni on time, making sure the potholes are filled, making sure our streets are safe, and jump-starting our economy. Those are progressive in and of themselves because they require San Francisco values to fix them right. And that's the approach that I bring.
The next question is for Scott. Harvey was all about building coalitions. He had a multi-ethnic staff and supporters. Yet today, many African Americans and lesbians say they do not feel welcome in the Castro. What specific ideas do you have to change that?
Sure. Thanks for that question. The Castro needs to be welcoming for everyone, and I put my money where my mouth is on that. You may recall a few years ago when there was a problem at Badlands, and there was a boycott of Badlands. And I stood there, and so did Rebecca, and so did Rafael, and I give them credit for that, on that picket line supporting that boycott. I took a lot of heat from doing that, from people in my social world and people who said, how can you do that? It's terrible, this is an overreaction. But I thought that it was critical. When Congress was considering an Employment Non-Discrimination Act that excluded gender identity, and I was on the board of the Human Rights Campaign, which then came out and supported that non-inclusive bill, I stood up publicly and said, that's not good enough. And I wrote an op-ed in the BAR saying that we cannot proceed this way and publicly disagreeing with HRC and with the Democratic leadership in Congress. I have supported lesbians for office. I supported a lesbian for mayor over a gay man when I supported Susan Leal for mayor in 2003, and I was proud of that support. And so I have always been willing to stand up for an inclusive community, and I will fight for an inclusive Castro. Thanks.
The next question is directed to Rafael. How would you advocate for students and their families that attend schools in District 8 but may not necessarily reside in District 8?
One of the things that I think has become clear to me, certainly crisscrossing the district over the last year, and throughout the city, I think schools are increasingly the most important issue for a lot of people. And I think it's without regard to where people live, particularly. In District 8, we're blessed with some of the schools that really are coming back, real success stories like the Harvey Milk School, like McKinley and Alvarado. But certainly there are schools in District 8 like Sanchez, Everett, Mission, that are not the San Francisco success story. We have a number of failing schools in this district. And I guess this is an issue where I think the supervisor from District 8 can provide a citywide leadership role. And as my model in the appropriate way for a supervisor to relate to the schools, I look Tom Amiano, who was a champion for schools while he was on the board, and who found ways to move revenue into the schools to bring back arts and libraries and music and physical activities to enrich education for children throughout San Francisco. I think reauthorizing Prop H when it comes up for reauthorization is very important. I think protecting the Children's Fund, however we reform our budget process, and we absolutely need to, I think children do have a hard time advocating for themselves in the budget, and it's important to protect those programs. So I would like to be an advocate for kids generally and for families that are trying to raise their children here from across the city.
The next question is for Bill. Do you feel the problems facing small business are more because of government interference or because of lack of spending power by customers? What have you proposed to resolve one or the other issue?
Great question. I think it's both. It's I hate seeing there's a lot of permit issues. I was just talking to somebody that started a business. It was almost a year to get permits, $60,000 in permit fees. And that's no way to encourage entrepreneurship. That's no way to encourage people to start opening businesses in San Francisco, especially small businesses. That's the exact opposite of what we should be doing. So I think it's partly government that's interfering with our business growth. And the spending power is, of course, huge. I know half of my friends have been laid off. They've lost their jobs or their companies have shut down. They're not going out to the bars. They're not going out eating. They're not spending money in the stores in the Castro or Noe Valley or even Union Square. So it's a spending power issue. And again, it comes down to jobs. We've got to make San Francisco more job friendly, more business friendly, and we've got to create more jobs here so we have a really, really secure job base. We're almost at 10% unemployment in the city, 12.9 in the state. I mean, this is unacceptable for San Francisco. I mean, we have such innovation here. We have such entrepreneurs. It's just so. Yeah, I think it's both.
The next question is for Rebecca. Most people in District 8 are not low income. They are renters or homeowners. Specifically, how would you help middle class renters become homeowners and stay in San Francisco? And how do you protect renters as well?
There was a HOPE initiative from 2002 that I actually opposed. And the purpose of that initiative was to take long-term tenants and try to make them into homeowners. And I opposed it on a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm sorry, I have to get lawyerly. There's something called Costa-Hawkins that was going to be a problem for the lifetime lease to protect tenants who decided not to purchase. And there was a low threshold. So if 5 people wanted to buy, or 5 units wanted to buy, the percentage of the people who had to agree to do it was very low. I want to take that as a skeleton and figure out how we can get to encouraging long-term tenants to buy the places that they own. I also have another idea. There are now 1,100 foreclosed properties in San Francisco. When my wife and I were going to buy our home, and we live on Castro between 19th and 20th, there were no foreclosed properties in San Francisco. Like I said, now there's over 1,100. What if we were able to turn those into affordable homes? I like to say for teachers, cops, firefighters, I've added musicians, artists. For all the development that we're going to see along Market Street, we're really only going to get, 15% of those are going to be affordable. And that's probably going to be, maybe 15 or 30 units. With 1,100, the sky's the limit. I'm sorry, I forgot the other half of the question, Cynthia.
How do you protect renters as well?
I think there's a difference between rent control and eviction control. And I think one of the things that I will fight tirelessly for is to make sure that our eviction protections are set in stone. For the rent issue, rent control is supposed to protect the people who make $500 a month in rent and pay $250 a month. Right now, it's protecting the people who make $5,000 a month and pay $250 a month in rent. We need to focus in on the problem and encourage those people to buy so that we can get rent control to protect the people that it should be.
The next question is directed to Scott. It's from our students here. How can you change the stores in the Castro so that kids can walk without it being inappropriate?
Always ask me the easy ones. And we can throw in the naked people, too. So. You know, the Castro is a unique and honestly a precious neighborhood because it's a neighborhood that is edgy and always has been and does have the adult stores and has a lot of LGBT people of all ages and who like all sorts of different things. But we also have families here, and we need to make it a welcoming place for families. And the balance is to make it clear that everyone is welcome here. And we're going to have adult-themed stores, and I'm not going to advocate for getting rid of those. They are part of our community as much as anyone else is. When there are things that cross a line, we can talk about that. When we talk about the naked people running around that we've been seeing more and more, it's one thing when you have a random naked person running around. It's another thing when you have what I saw the other day, someone laying down on the sidewalk naked, aroused. That was not okay. So it's a balance, and we need to make sure that we're maintaining that balance and that everyone is welcome in this community and that we're not cleansing the community to change it, and that we're not excluding people from our community.
The next question is for Rafael.